Good morning. Buckle up for the best answers to the question you've always been asking yourself, maybe. Do you think video games should be discussed in school just like books and movies are? What games would be interesting to interpret or discuss as pieces of art and why? I think it would be a study called pop culture. I took a pop culture class in college. It was fascinating. I did my final paper in that class on the linguistic power of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Friend of mine did theirs on the philosophy of Super Mario Bros. Why didn't I have this class in school? I would have done a paper on top 10 anime betrayals. Top 10 anime transformations. Alright guys, homework for tonight is section 1 of Final Fantasy VI. For those of you who forgot what section 1 is, you're going to play through until you reach the rebel base with Banon. Please don't play past that, as we don't want spoilers in the class. Get to Banon, save, then take a break. As I recall from playing that game way too much in my youth, that's at least 3 hours of work right there. Maybe homework for the week. You could discuss in a larger context, or in specific game study classes, but the story of books and movies don't require action from you to make happen, so they will be 100% easier to be looked at in school. So probably not in the context you're looking for. No. Some games don't rely heavily on player choice though, such as Portal and Portal 2, which will have the same story no matter who experiences it. Literature and stories are art, so why wouldn't Portal be seen that way as well? You could have a specific class as an elective covering the basics of game design, gaming history, and gaming hardware advances, which likely is already studied under tech. Also could be used as supplementary literature material. Someone studying Atlas Shrugged, Brave New World, and 1984 would see how they influenced games like BioShock. BioShock also explores the concept of free will in a game setting where you appear to control the character, but ultimately you have to do whatever the game designers programmed your character to do. This is engagement with free will in a unique way that couldn't have been done in a movie or novel. You could maybe use the scripts from the more story-driven games. I think The Last of Us would be a great choice for discussion though. Last of Us has a good story for a video game, but it's nothing amazing in terms of literary achievement. High school English teacher here. Yeah, we should, but it honestly doesn't work as well as you might think. Lots of people focus on the narrative. So The Last of Us and other narrative-focused games like that are popular subjects. What people forget is in English class we talk about elements of the medium of literature and how it helps develop the narrative and their associated ideas. First off, most teachers don't know how to explain that. I think I am certainly capable of teaching this, but that's because examining the medium of video games has been a long-time hobby of mine. Second, narrative-focused games suck as games because they don't take advantage of the medium. The Last of Us, Uncharted, etc. They don't take advantage of the medium and are essentially just limited interactive movies. So even if it did happen, you wouldn't be exploring games you actually know and like. You'd be exploring games like Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, where the game using the controller to make you feel literal loss by navigating through the narrative. Or Spec Ops: The Line, where the game makes you navigate ever downwards, and addresses the player for the protagonist's immoral decisions. Brothers is a briefly fun indie game, and Spec Ops handles like a poopty FPS because it is a poopty FPS. So it wouldn't be fun for students. We could analyze video game narratives in English class, but we wouldn't be exploring the full extent of what we could do with a book/short story. You'd miss out on the video game equivalent of how do these literary elements establish and develop a central idea? Which might sound something like how does the player's interaction with the controller, controlling both brothers simultaneously, convey a sense of loss at the apex of Brothers. I think what students want is pop culture analysis, which I've done multiple times. Identifying trauma in characters from My Hero Academia, a comparative analysis of isolationism between pre-World War II America and Marvel's Wakanda, etc. But again, you run into the same issue about the mediums you're discussing, so your analyses are almost always incomplete in some capacity. Sorry if this is a bit rambly. This is something I want, but most people who want it don't know what it entails. It would be interesting to see how that would be implemented. Maybe some snippets of dialogue similar to reading excerpts from books/plays. I think something like RDR2 would be interesting. There's a lot of potential for discussions about good/evil and just plain morality and human nature in general. Same with the crazy amount of detail they put into the wildlife and everything around it. My geography teacher mentioned that too. My freshman year of high school, my AP World History teacher literally told us to play the early Assassin's Creed games. Best school assignment I ever got. Did everyone have access to playing the game? Just curious. It was a recommendation, not an outright assignment. Ah, I see, wish my history teacher was like that. Not really, since the barrier of entry costs a lot of money for a PC, Xbox, and games and whatever, poor students would have trouble participating. Beyond that, the vast majority of video games, even the best, don't hold much academic merit beyond visual arts, and at that, rarely if ever beyond an 8th grade level. Some games teach skills or can help students to understand complex systems, but of those, how many are of a school-appropriate nature? And if you do manage to find a holy grail game that has both academic merit and teaches skills in an appropriate way, would it not just be better to find a cheaper alternative to the game in favor of reaching more students? Musician here. Video game music is absolutely worth studying in the same way that film music is worth studying. It isn't just about visual arts. Life is strange. Came here to say this. Crap is art and it gets deep as frick. I was playing Lease 2 while tripping at the part where the old white dude kidnaps you and your brother, and it really do be like that sometimes. The Steam forums thought it was a little too political, but it felt severely real. It really wasn't all that political, that's just life. That's how it is. Nier Automata. Such a beautifully tragic story of life, death, and existence. You could have an entire major dedicated to contents of that game. Nier 101, Dat Booty. That game is criminally underrated. The poetry and the lore in Hollow Knight would be awesome to decipher and talk through. Finally. Had to scroll too far to find this. Ah, I see, a man of culture. Introduce the young ones to Dead Space. This is a horrifying idea. I just imagine a bunch of second graders having to play Dead Space. You need gold right now. I was thinking this as well. Great storyline, great mechanics, great atmosphere/music, too bad you're running scared as hell through most of it enough to not be able to enjoy it, at least on the first playthrough. 3 was good, but nothing like 1 and especially 2. I see it more as a specialty elective rather than a requirement. There are too many barriers, for example financial, skill and time, that wouldn't work for a high school class. Alternatively, some teachers allow you to discuss any sort of narrative, as long as you can defend it academically, which means video games could potentially be an essay topic for individual students. Some theoretical lecture titles: The Last of Us, Who is the Villain? How Interactivity Enhances Impact, Would You Kindly Final Fantasy VII, Potential Ramifications of Humanity's Predilection Towards Industry and Steel. Final Fantasy VI, Dancing Mad, How Music Tells a Story. How Fortnite Sparked a Revolution doesn't sit right with me in my opinion, so I don't think so. I agree that Fortnite doesn't come to mind when thinking of video games as art pieces, but some games are just good for entertainment while other games might offer something else. I wouldn't think of Fortnite either. However, if we are talking about a class that discusses modern entertainment, it can't be overlooked. Its features are just things I hadn't seen in shooter games before. I don't think there wouldn't be much discussion other than why is this game so huge. There are books that aren't so deep but they can still have large entertainment value. You can't deny that some art is deep and some is utter face value. I think it would be amazing to have video game discussions as an art, not only about storytelling, but also about themes, meaning, cohesion and of course visuals. The problem is, this is school we're talking about. Using Half-Life 2 as an example, teenagers are not going to focus on the volumes Gordon Freeman's silence speaks throughout the story, how Alex develops a simultaneous trust bond with him and grief as they progress, the mysteriousness of the G-Man's dialogue, or the massive butterfly effects one action has on the overall plot. They are gonna focus more on which gun is better at blowing a combine soldier's head off. I'm not saying that this is a bad idea, I'm all for it, but I think that most children at that age don't process that kind of appreciation for the craft. I can see talks about video games as art on universities and college, where they can recognize aspects of beauty beyond gameplay, but in school it would be way more difficult. Besides, there's the hard task on grading the students based on what they learn, and what they interpret, and how may vary or not meet the criteria to constitute for a passing grade. What would have been your answer or question? Leave it in the comments below. Slap that like and subscribe button for more, and check out the link in the video description for even more answers. Peace out, and catch you in the next video.